if you want to squat 700 pounds, that mountain seems giant.
Yeah.
But if you to experience that training hall, and it's like, oh, there's like 7 teenagers in here ripping 700 pounds off the ground. I should do that. I should be able to do that with ease. I should be better than them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it warps you a little bit. But I feel like if you just experience that even a few times, you carry it with you. Even if you're not like around it and like surrounded by it 24/7, you can't unsee certain things.
Yeah. Well, it's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. All right, guys, we're back with another episode of Table Talk. Today, my guest is Dawson Windham, raw powerlifter and coach. Started competing in 2015, but training way before that. So we'll get into all that. Best lifts of 733, 534.6, 810.2, 2077.80 total. That's from open powerlifting. So all that's correct, right? There's no recent meets like in the last week that's not on there.
No, sir.
All right, where I want to start, as I like to start a little bit, actually, no, where I'm going to start is the first time I met you was a couple years ago in the Pump House gym where it's in Myrtle Beach. And interesting story about that one is I kind of quit training down there for a while because all the gyms sucked. And we were there for 3 weeks and my son likes to go to the arcade that's, I don't know how many stores down because there's no stores in between. I went to like next door down. So the week before we left and took him to the arcade and I'm walking through that mall, which is not really a mall. It's just like a dead mall. And I see this gym. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like this was here the whole time. I've been here for 2.5 weeks or whatever it was. And so I stopped in to train while he was in there and you came in with a couple of your buddies. And as we're talking, you're introducing yourself. And there was one thing that you said that was funny, which I don't know if you really picked up on it, but I mentioned it a couple of times in the podcast since then, is you're explaining to these people who I was. It's basically said, you got to kind of respect your elders. And it cracked me up, right? Because on one hand, it could have looked like it was an insult, but it wasn't an insult. But to me, it was one of the funniest experiences I've ever had in my life. And then at the time I looked you up, then recognized you after I looked at your Instagram, which was that day from competing in the Ghost Clash or something like that. And before we finished that conversation that day, you said, I hope one day I can be on your podcast.
Yes, I said, I hope one day I'm strong enough
to be on the podcast, but now it's gone full circle. And
I just needed 60 more pounds on my total from that conversation.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was that close.
Yeah. And that wasn't really the determining factor of the whole thing either. But the cool thing is, it kind of opened the door too, because when I'm down there, it's kind of like a work vacation, but it's really also like a deload. But I don't like going longer than a couple weeks without actually squatting. And that becomes a pain in the ass when you're going to different gyms and you can only use a safety squat bar and stuff like that. And then it was like, cool, I found a place that I can actually squat because it has a monolift, it has a safety squat bar. And then somebody that could come in and run the monolift. Which was, I appreciate that because that helps. If I go longer than 3 weeks without squatting, my back starts to hurt like a bitch. And so I want to thank you for that because now there's somebody there. And there's been a couple times where I went down for a couple weeks and I check your Instagram. Then you're like in Rhode Island or something like that. I'm like, shit.
You should have asked this, mate, Rob. I would have flew home.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't do that. But going through some of your content and some of the past podcasts that you've been on, I want to jump off with this quote that you said, which was, I showed up at my first meet with an oversized singlet, missing commands, and I looked like an idiot.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me about that. Then we'll kind of go through your path.
So, I started training. It wasn't powerlifting. I didn't really know Elite FTS or T Nation. I was watching natural bodybuilding. It was Chris Jones, Matt Ogus on YouTube. And I just trained really hard. And they're like, progressive overload is key. So I was 14 years old. I basically quit all other sports. I was doing jiu-jitsu. I played soccer. I actually break danced before. And I
modeled. Was it modeling there?
Modeling. When I was like 16, I went and did a modeling gig because that's where my natural bodybuilding thing kind of led to, was a little modeling gig. And they basically told me when I was like 170 pounds, that's pretty shredded still. I didn't have much like body fat. They're like, yeah, this is a bodybuilder look. I was like, yeah, no, this isn't this isn't for me. I want to get bigger. I'm not going to downsize. I'm not going to starve. I did a crash diet too, where I like ate chicken and lettuce for like 2 weeks before that little modeling gig. And then they told me I was still too big. I was like, this is soft. I don't want to do this. Then I was just in the gym. I was training heavy. This guy, his name's Pat Stroop. He saw me, and I was deadlifting like 525 because I started watching Candido on YouTube. This is when he kind of first made his like, you know, and I was running his program. And I hit like a 525 deadlift, and this grown man walked in and he like looked at me and he was like, "Why don't you compete in powerlifting?" I was like, "You think I could compete? You think I'm strong enough?" Because in my head, like, I was like, looked at the state records. I wasn't like, I was kind of close, but like I thought I had to like shatter them to be a somebody at like a local meet. I didn't understand. My perception was I'm going to show up to a meet and all these people are very serious competitors and I'm not going to win or whatever. And he wrote me a free program. I kind of went off program a lot, but I followed most of it. He gave me the singlet and it was like a 2 or 3XL and I was like a 200-pound kid barely. And then I went and I set like, you have the teen 2 records, the teen 3. I think I had the junior records and maybe even a few open. I had like 27 state records.
This is USAPL, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
At the time, and I was rated like ranked like number 1 teen 2 in the country after that. So I went from like, I didn't really think I could do this to like, oh, I'm actually the greatest of all time. And I will stay number 1 forever. And it's actually very easy.
Yeah.
And then I went and bombed nationals in the next year. So that was my second meet. So then I had a rude awakening of like, yeah, this actually isn't that. I'm not entitled to number 1 or anywhere close or winning and that was probably one of the best things that could have happened to me. Like as my second meet, I haven't bombed since. I've learned my lesson, like train to standards. Like, USAPL nationals is obviously more strict than a local meet. I bombed out on sumo deadlift. I got the lockout and I just kept losing my balance. I could pull it every time, but I didn't hold my lockouts in training. And that's like missing out on something and bombing out.
Especially on the deadlift.
Yeah, I felt so stupid because I locked it out every single time. I like cried in the car on the way home. I got home and I went and trained the next day and I told my mom I'm winning next year. And I actually took a break from college to go do that. Then I won next year and I got like a scholarship to Midland to go train there after that. So that was kind of like how I got into it.
So with something interesting that you said was, you didn't think you were strong enough, to do a meet, and you also work as a coach as well. So you're working with people that may have that same feeling, and that, you see, that's the first hurdle everybody has to get over, right? Because they don't think they're strong enough to do a meet, and you have that same feeling, so you can relate to that more so.
And I try to give them the perspective of like, after I competed, that's when it started. Because now I'm like, okay, I'm on this database. We didn't have open powerlifting at the time. It was a USAPL, shitty little database. You could kind of see where you're ranked and all. And it was just, how do I say this?
As you normally would.
I kind of lost my train of thought, my bad.
Well, you're looking at the database, because the question was, all the lifters out there that don't think that they're strong enough to compete. So you saw that.
Like, when I started competing, I was actually like actively placed against people. Then I'd go to nationals. It would be at these head-to-heads where I'm actually pushed and I'm pressed, where if I'm going in the gym, there's no pressure. I'm not as uncomfortable. There wasn't this like, I have a deadline for this goal now. Like when I signed up for my first meet, it's like the state records, wherever they were, I hit 496, 353, 551. And I just broke the records, whatever they were, like barely. And like to me, it's like I was looking at that and I only cared about the records. But once I got into competing, especially in USAPL, since you have the population density of those head-to-heads, and there's so many people that are so close and you become friends with them. You talk to them. You kind of like learn like, this is what this guy's doing, this is what this guy's doing. Everyone has their own different approach, but it pushes you harder. Like I feel like I made way more progress after I competed. Like I wish I competed when I was like 12. I competed throughout because I felt like it would have gave me more incentive to be like, dialed into each event.
So were you pushed more by beating those people or the numbers?
I didn't even really, like the people I was competing against at my first meet, like I wasn't even really competing against them. I was more so just kind of chasing my numbers and I kind of won without.
Well, after that first one, once you're looking at that list.
After that, for a period when I was in USAPL and I was deep in there, it was more about just placing the highest you possibly could, more about winning meets, and it wasn't so much about chasing records. But when you switch to untested, there's not that density to it, and there's not as many people. So it's more so about like, where am I at in open powerlifting? Where am I ranked? I got to go head to head with Alec at Ghost, and the other 242s were in flight D. So like I would go first, and then they would go like 2 hours later.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
I didn't like that at all because I felt like my attempt selection would have been different. I placed third. I actually would have, if I weighed in at 275, I would have placed second, because untested 242 is where everyone is, But I feel like if everyone was put head to head, it's like the choices everyone makes is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, but that's tricky when you're not known.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because I've known that to happen to a lot of people, where it's the first meet, second meet, or whatever it's going to be, or the first time in that federation where they really should be in the other flight with those other people, and they're actually beating a lot of the people that are in that main flight.
Yeah.
I
think of JJ Falk. He won prime time at nationals at 220, and he did it like in the daytime session. So he didn't even get to compete with all the big dogs, but he stomped them all.
Yeah, but that should only happen one time in the career, right? Because I don't want to say it doesn't happen after that, but I can understand one time.
Because you don't know who he is, but after that, you
become more established. So with this scholarship that you got, how did that work? Was it a full ride type thing?
They call it a full ride, but not really. They gave you a fair amount, but the university was a private university, and he kind of gets you with the term full ride. The way it worked, and some kids would get more than others. Everyone would kind of get their individual amount. I still had to pay to go there. The tuition there was like $40,000 because it was a private university. And the way the school worked, we won powerlifting every single year, like Collegiate Nats. They had a dance team. They won nationals. But like real sports that people cared about, we sucked. Like it was terrible. It was a very small school. We had like an esports scholarship. There's a bowling team. Like it was just basically like kind of handing out scholarships to get people to attend this private school that was failing before. Not trying to take away from the experience, because I did learn a lot. And the training hall, all the eco equipment, it was world class. There's numerous teenagers in there deadlifting like 700 plus drug free. One kid, Joe Pena, squatted 970 at 19 at like 380 in a pair of sleeves in an IPF meet. Like just being around that, like I gained more from that than the college education.
What were you studying at the time?
It was exercise science. It was biology. I didn't know what I was doing. I had my training business, and I was there to lift weights.
So it was just powerlifting.
Yeah, it was powerlifting. First, I was studying powerlifting.
Yeah. And at what point did you leave?
I had like a little mental health episode, and after that, I took a break from school, and I went to therapy for a bit, for like 12 weeks, like 2 times a week. I was in a psych ward for a week, and took a year off from competing. Then I had a knee surgery, took another year off competing. So I had a 2-year gap there. And I didn't hit a single PR while I wasn't competing. Even though I was training, I didn't miss a single session. But because I didn't have that deadline I was talking about earlier that kind of pushed me, as soon as I signed up for a meet again, I started, but I had that gap.
Let's spin this back before we get too far ahead of ourselves there. When did you first start training? Because if the first competition was in 2015, when did you first fall in love with the training aspect?
So there's a redneck named Benji. He had like a weight bench in his like house, and I started playing on that when I was like,
named Benji.
Yes. Yes, Benji Floyd.
Yes.
And he had this shitty Walmart weight bench in his house, and I was like,
how old were you?
Probably like 12, 11, 12. And I was like, he was like one of my older brother's friends, and I was like, yeah, this is the shit right here. He took me to Planet Fitness for a few times. A lot of people shit on Planet Fitness too. I think it's a soft gym. Yes, it was the first gym I started at. I got exposure to free weights. I fell in love with it at a Planet Fitness. So like in majority of America, it's fat. They don't do anything. They don't exercise at all. So I'm not going to ridicule the people that are doing it like a lower level. If anything, it's like, hey, maybe let's try to, once you get more established, let's get to a better gym, So I did that. Football weight room, like 7th, 8th grade. It was kind of like on and off. I just do push-ups, dips, pull-up bar. I do dumbbell curls, like 20 pounds, 5x5 with horrendous form in my room. And then when I turned 14, that's when it became like real. Like I started I was almost better about it then than I was now, because I didn't realize what I could get away with. Like I'm like, no, Mom, I can't have a cheat meal. I'm going to weigh all my food on a scale. This is how it has to be done. This is what the professionals do. I was pro splits. Any big guy in the gym, I'd go up and I'd annoy him and harass him, trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah. What was the turning point for that?
Like when I just started getting into lifting?
Yeah, like what you said when you're 14 is when it became this top priority.
I think because that's when I was like old enough to get a membership, and my mom, like before I could drive, she would take me after school and drop me off at the gym. So she had a business. I kind of had to have some shit to do for a few hours before we could, go home, because we lived so far away from where I went to school at. So it was just it was either that, jiu-jitsu. It was just the thing I had most fun with.
Yeah.
It was the most enjoyable. I felt like it was like the thing I could control the most. You know what I mean? Like I felt like I lacked like a sense of control in my life at that age, and this was something I could control my food, I could control my training, I can control what my body does, and to me that was so interesting. Like seeing my like stretch marks, and like when you first start training, you have those rapid gains. I gained like 20 pounds of like lean muscle in my first year because I ate like an animal. I trained like an animal. I didn't even have a program. It was just like the go heavier, add 5 pounds. Just if it doesn't work, try again the next week.
So what did the training look like? I mean, are you getting inspiration from like muscle magazines, or
It was
going in?
that Matt Ogus guy, a lot of it was,
Yeah.
I ran Windler 531.
Okay.
That was actually the first program I ran before Candido. You were talking about hanging out with Windler the other day, and I wanted to interrupt you and tell you about it, but we started talking about something else. I ran Windler 531, and that was probably like my like introduction to like strength training. I did like the boring but big, and I do like a lot of other bodybuilding stuff after it. Cause I read that there's like the boring but big, and then you had the Dave Tate version of Windler 531. I kind of mixed them because the boring but big didn't have like any bodybuilding work. And I was like, well, I want to be jacked too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think the 5x10 and 5x10 on the overhead press and bench, like they help. I was like, I need to do some like chest flies. And so I kind of mix and match those. And maybe that was the turning point. It's hard to say. Like I've loved it ever since I started.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like there was like this switch that flipped. It's like as soon as I found it, I was like, this is my shit.
Well, there was a point to where you didn't want to power lift because you thought they all were fat. So what was the reason for that?
My perspective shifted after that guy walked up to me in the gym and he saw it was like, oh, you could be good at this. I remember the first time it was a guy my mom knew. His name was Bert Timmons, Cool Breeze. You know him? You know that name?
So we got Benji and Cool Breeze now.
Yeah. You know Cool Breeze? He used to hang out with Donnie. You never, he's
like kind of faintly remember.
You remember him?
Yeah.
I was like 14 years old. I was going to the gym to get abs because I think like Taylor Lautner got like a 6-pack and girls were like raving over him at the time. Like, this is go to the gym, do like 30 sets of abs. I remember my mom like dropped me off. I'm like 14. This big ass monster. It was a hard gut. He had like a strong core. I didn't realize. To me, he's just a fat guy. He's like, yeah, if you need anything, if you want me to show you the ropes, kid, I like looked at him. I was like,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm good, buddy. Like I don't want to look like that.
Yeah.
You know, so there definitely was like and back then powerlifters did more so look like that. It wasn't like you're going to see people fucking lean at the top of their weight class, shredded, looking like bodybuilders dominating, you know?
Yeah. I wonder how much the coefficient changed that, right? Because it's through certain periods of time, just winning weight classes was like the most important thing. But then as the top raw meats began to start popping off, then that was more determined by whatever coefficient was being used at the time, which would force people to be leaner, right? Because coefficient's going to be better.
They're going to cut down.
Do
anything they can.
Yeah. Which on the extreme end of that, now we got people cutting down for their first. The weight cut ends up being more important than the actual training sometimes, which is
especially their first 2 years in training. How I talked about, I gained like 20 pounds of mass my first year because I decided to like capitalize on my youth and use it to grow instead of like, oh, I need to stay 180 pounds because I'm gonna be the best 100. It's like, dude, no, I'm not. I'm 6 foot tall. I have to fill out my frame. I feel like a lot of people. Austin Perkins is the best 74 kg in the world. A lot of people look at him as like, oh, well, he's strong at 165 pounds. Why can't I? And what they fail to realize, Austin, like 4 years ago, he like wasn't 150 pounds. He bulked up to like 162. And I'm sure he's still trying to like get more size on him. I think he's still a little bit underweight. But it's not like he was just 165 pounds. He's still 165 pounds. So you got this world-class strength. He built himself. He was just a smaller person naturally, and he had to bulk up and gain that muscle to fill out his frame, even though it's not the same frame someone who's 6'5" is going to carry. You know.
So for that gap period of time when you're training in the barn,
I was training in my shed, and I used a lot of that time to build my training business at the time. I trained 2 high schoolers in person every day while I do my own workout. Those Scoop and JM. And Scoop went from like a 275 deadlift to like a 615 in like a year. And his squat and his bench blew up. He was benching around 300. He started around like 135, 150. That was something cute and adorable. JM, I don't remember what he did. What his bench was around 300. His deadlift was around 585. He was like 17 and like 165. He squat 540. I remember on Open Powerlifting, you looked it up. It was like the number one at the time. I trained him really hard. I pushed him really hard. I look back and I feel like I almost pushed them too hard because they were children and they didn't like care about it as intensely as I do. And they didn't want to stick with it because it was probably so grueling and hard. But then part of me is like, if I'd never pushed those kids as hard as I did, then they never would have saw what they could have done. So I kind of have mixed feelings about it, but not just them. I'm building my online roster and other local people in the area. Like I use that time to build all that up. You know, I was just kind of focusing on different aspects of life for the time.
What was it like? Because you're essentially off the grid at that point.
Yes.
So what was that like?
It was nice. So like when COVID first hit, and this was before anyone in the United States like really like took it serious. I had a client in France. I think his name was Tom. And he told me, he's like, hey, this shit just killed my grandma. Like, this is coming to the States and it's like real. I was like, okay, cool. So I quit going to the gyms because this was when the fear was a lot higher and it didn't seem like anyone else was reacting. I was like, I know something people don't hear. So that's when I like started buying a shit ton of gym equipment and I put it in the shed and I loved it. It was in my best friend's backyard. His name was Taylor Ard. He never charged me any overhead or anything. I would train him for free along with those two high schoolers. That was kind of my payment to him and whatever else I could do for him. We never really kept tabs.
Yeah.
We just always had each other's back. And I would just kind of slowly add to it.
Now, did that help with your mental health during that time period?
I think so, because I had whiteboards all over the gym and every single day I would write down like 3 positive affirmations. Taylor would do it with me and humor me just to kind of, have some support. And I would sit there, I'd write down my goals, like I will squat this, I will bench this, I will deadlift this, and I would sit there and I would work on it. And isolating myself for that period definitely gave me like, especially since you're in the middle of nowhere, and I would wake up, I'd be at home, kind of alone, I'd go to the gym, we'd have a horse, a donkey, and like chickens outside, no cell phone service. It was very grounding.
Yeah, I would think that would make it worse, though.
Isolating like that?
Yeah.
It did in ways. Like that, definitely when it came back to COVID and I had to first start socializing with humans, I was a little bit awkward.
Yeah, well, I'm saying if the mental health is kind of off and then you're just kind of stuck with your own thoughts all the time, or what?
I was going to therapy too, like I said, and I was journaling, I was reading. I did have like Taylor and he had his girlfriend, Sean, who's now his wife. I did have like good people with me. It was that time during COVID where I feel like everyone was isolated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that was shortly before like all the gyms shut down in the area. In South Carolina only happened for like 2 weeks, but in other areas more so. And people were just manic.
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind me asking, what drove you into the dark place?
A lot of things. Lack of self-control, a lot of anger, a lot of self-hatred. People talk about depression and they think it's like sitting in your bed and you're like sad. You're just like getting like eaten up by like feeling bad for yourself. To me, that was never my experience with depression. Would I have those days? Yes. But self-hatred is more of an intense, depression is more of an intense feeling. It's self-hatred. That's the definition I see it as. So I just basically didn't like myself much. I was harming myself a little bit. I wasn't in a good place. And I had people in my life at the time that kind of exacerbated the issue and didn't really help me out of it. And I didn't have like the best guidance or leadership. I need to grow as a person.
Yeah.
I went through some shit.
So did that remove you from those people?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I removed myself. That's kind of what isolating did for me a little bit. But looking back, that's probably one of the best things that happened to me. I think the same thing about my knee surgery. I always think like the worst things that ever happened to you, it kind of becomes your gift because it made me a lot more empathetic to people that actually deal with shit.
Yeah.
And maybe like I still struggle to be kind. Not really sometimes, but it definitely made me a kinder person going through that and understanding like if I can struggle like this and I'm trying to hide it and no one knows, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And other people can be going through the same thing.
So what was your takeaway from that to help you to not get to that place again?
The first journal I had, I actually like titled it, What I Learned from the Psych Ward. And I was like in my head one day, I was like, maybe I'll sell this as a book.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some shame and, embarrassment behind that. But there's a podcast. It was, I don't know how it's Ben, the bodybuilder, the really sciencey guy, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Dr. P.
Yeah.
He had the Muscle Intelligence podcast, something like that. And he talked about, he got something from a book and he discussed values. And he said, if you come to something in life and you're not sure what to do, write down what your values are 1 through 5. And whenever you come to this thing in life, you can refer to your value system and that will answer the question for you. The answer is already made. So what do you value the most? And you have to put in order. Like 1's the most important, 2's the second, 3, 4, 5. And I don't remember the exact order I came up with, but mental health was number one. Number two was my family, my close friends, my loved ones. Three was my passion. Like what do I do? Like for me, it was training, obviously. Four was my impact, and five was finance.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime I came to something, it's like say if it's between, I can make more money, but it's going to cost me my mental health. What's a higher value?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
So what process did you go through to define that? Because one of the things that people struggle with is trying to find their purpose or their values. And if you ask somebody, hey, what are your values? They're just going to spit, you know what I'm saying? They're going to spit things out, but they're not going to put a lot of thought into that. And there's different thought processes to be able to kind of help dissect what that is. Did you, through therapy or through yourself, did you find a process to help determine what those were?
Through all of it, through things I was struggling with, and the fact that I put my mental health as such a low priority in comparison to all those things, and I kind of saw where it got me.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't do this. I can't continue to do this. And I don't even I try to stay 100% true to those values all the time. It's a lot easier said than done.
Sure.
But when I refer back to it, and I can kind of zoom out and I think about that, it really kind of makes making decisions and choices a lot easier.
So how do you personally define mental health? Because that's a very broad term, kind of like if we were talking and we just said, hey, yeah, we love training.
Mm-hmm.
That can be CrossFit. It can be jogging, running, powerlifting. It's a very broad term, so as that is a value of such a very broad term, it lacks some meaning and purpose, so with that mental health being that broad term for yourself, what does that encompass?
Happiness. I wake up every day and what I get to do, I love. I feel like I get to help people. I feel like I have value in what I provide and the service I provide.
But can you have happiness without having the opposite?
No, you have to kind of learn how to enjoy rainy days if you want to enjoy the sunshine. It's like we were talking about training earlier. If it was all PRs all the time, it wouldn't be any fun.
Mm-hmm.
The reason the PRs give you so much endorphins is because you ate shit. You failed that bench before. It tore your pack and you overcame it. And that's what kind of gives it meaning.
Yeah.
It's gaining the perspective for that too, and kind of learning how to handle the negative emotions and the lows that come with the highs.
More from a reframing perspective. So something bad happens, trying to figure out what.
I was taught something in therapy. It was Control Alt Delete.
Yeah.
If you're having a very negative thought and it's just repeating, control your thinking, alternate the thought. Just choose to think about something else, even if it's very hard. If I'm ruminating on something and I just can't get my head off of it, I'll try to let's think about this. I will actively try to do that, and it deletes the old thought.
Okay.
So there was a lot of mental training and there to kind of unlearn some things. The positive affirmations, I feel that was a lot too. I know it's very girly, but it helped me control my self-talk. You write something down all the time. I'm in the gym. I'm seeing it every single day. It adjusted my brain a little bit. Yeah. That, and something I do every single day, I try to ask people all the time. It's what was the highlight of your day? My partner, my friends, my mom, my dad, whoever, I asked them that. I asked them what 3 things they're grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
It's simply just taking the time, because I know I'm going to ask people those questions. In return, they're going to ask it back. It's actually kind of a selfish endeavor. But if I ask someone what are 3 things they're grateful for, it's taking the time to actually put your perspective on that and to be mindful of that. And it kind of, when I'm going through my day every single day, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for this. Yesterday I was I'm grateful to be here. Thank you. It's it becomes a part of my vocabulary. It becomes my existence because it's just what I've spent my energy and my time focusing on.
You think you would have come to that same mental place without that isolation if you were still in the environment that you were in before? Probably not.
No, I think removing yourself from very negative people that are very draining and kind of vampires.
Yeah.
If you're someone who's a giver and you lack boundaries, takers don't have limits, so the giver kind of has to.
Well, at the same time, it takes discipline and balls to be able to make that jump to remove yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the catalyst for that?
Going to a psych ward was enough for me. It was. After being locked up a week. Once I got in there, I realized I didn't have problems. I realized how small my problem, because I saw people in there that were actually fucking crazy. I was okay, I'm normal. I'm good. I am people talking about seeing demons and shit, and they act like they're actually seeing them. I got assaulted by a girl in there. Assault's a strong word, but she put me in a headlock. I was sitting there playing Jenga, and it fell over, and she kept repeating, "You just dropped the game." I'm like, what? And she's had it like 4 times. There's like nursing students in front of me that are like my age, which makes it like way more embarrassing. She puts me in like a headlock, and I don't want to, if I harm her, or like lay a hand on her, I'm going to be held and detained longer. So I don't do that, you know? So, and then like the nursing like let her go, and she eventually like let me go, but it was a very unsettling place to be. And not like there's people in there like that, and then there's like an 18-year-old girl in there because she has bad anxiety. In my head, I'm like, I'm a grown-ass man who's a threat, and I have bad anxiety in this place. I don't see how this helps you, or how this is gonna it's gonna serve you. They kind of just shove pills on you to kind of get you stable, and then you're out and on your own.
But there's still a choice that you have to make, you know, after that, because you can go back to the same situation.
Oh, 100%.
But to make that decision to be able to remove yourself is, you know, a big choice to have them there. So what was the drive for that? Because now with where you're at now, you can say, well, I wanted to be the best powerlifter I could, so I had to get my shit together.
I wanted to be the best person I can. I don't. It's not even about powerlifting.
Yeah,
like powerlifting is like my vessel to do that.
Yeah,
it's not like it's not training is the only thing I care about. I want to be the best speaker. I want to be the best coach. I want to be the best partner. I want to be a better son. I want to be a better Christian. I want to be better at many things. You know, it's not like I want to be the best person I could possibly be in every aspect. It's not training isn't the only thing that I care about. It is one of the things I care about the most, and you do see, you know, the physical display of it the most. It's very visual, with other things I don't feel like are.
Yeah.
You know?
So when you left that environment and went back kind of like into a real world setting, how was that?
There's anxiety at first. There's honestly fear.
Then how do you manage that?
I had good friends. There were people who like comforted me, had my back. Like there's a point. I actually had like a panic attack at Hybrid. It was my first time going to a meet after all that, and I was with Shane. I remember I was handling him that meet. I gave him a 9 for 9 day, and it was the first time he ever had a 9 for 9 meet. It might be the only time he's ever had it in his life. I remember we were at like a little coffee shop, and I started like getting like a little bit of a panic attack for some reason. And he looked at me, and I thought he was going to judge me like pussy. And he sat there, he's like, "You did that for me? Like you went through that for me?" I sat there and I didn't feel bad. I was like, "Oh shit. No, okay, I got this." Like once I got through that day, because that was the first time I've handled someone at that caliber, at that level, and he had a perfect day and a 9 for 9 day. I kind of had imposter syndrome, like going into that. After that day, I was like, I know what the fuck I'm doing. I know how to do this shit, and I kind of like shook it all off of me. Like I just kind of had to face it.
So when you say panic attack, how does that manifest in yourself? Again, a lot of these terms for everybody are different.
My breathing was very, very fast. It was almost kind of hard to control. My heart rate was extremely fast, racing thoughts. Seems like I couldn't have control of them, or kind of get a grip on myself. It's basically like the inability to calm down, to calm my breathing, or like to feel like I even had control of it. But it's all just like I did, and I just had to like get myself there.
Yeah. And so is that when you ended up in Myrtle?
No, I was living, I was in Timminsville, South Carolina whenever I was isolating myself, and I was training at the shed, going home. And I would like go to the gyms once they kind of opened up, because I do like my squat, bench, and deadlift, and I go to the gym, and I kind of have like a social outing there, and, you know, I would have my gym homies. So it's not like I was completely alone, but that's what I would do.
Were you working with Stacy at that time? Stacy
was my coach. She coached me into that Costa Rica meet, and she coached me for probably like 2 to 3 years after that. So yes. Stacy's, and even if she wasn't coaching me, I'd have like other coaches, and she would help me, and she would always guide me. And like, she knew me when I was 16. The problem was I was just not respecting her for what she was. I remember I didn't think she knew what she was doing, honestly. Then I watched her go do the Kern. That was like her first like outing as a big meet, and she won like 10 grand, and she like pulls, I don't remember, 523 or something, she was like the 4th female or 3rd female all time or something. I don't remember the exact numbers, but she was getting close to the top at that point. And I was like, holy shit, I should listen. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing in comparison.
Now, did it help that she came from a real small town?
It helped. It helped that she came from where I came from 100%. Because she's also just someone who always looked at me, and I was always like, I don't know about that. My parents like powerlifting. Like, oh, I'm gonna go be a professional powerlifting coach. It's like, come on. You know what I mean? Like they don't understand what the world is with social media and everything now. Where Stacy would look at me, she's like, "I'm trying on doing seminars. You want to do this?" I was like, "You think I can
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, yeah, why not? You're very good at this. You're exceptional. You're great at teaching people. You're smart. You understand mobility better than most anyone I've met. Like, I was like, oh, okay. It was always that kind of push to go on and do the next thing, you know?
When you say where you come from, you told me earlier that the town you grew up in was like 400 people.
400 people, people smoking cigarettes in gas stations while they make your food. Everyone knows everyone. It was a very small, I drove 30 minutes to go to a school, and it had probably like 2,000 people in my high school, so it wasn't like extremely small. And like that's where I kind of like grew up, was in Florence, South Carolina. There's a lot more kids there, but like when you're growing up and you don't have a car, you're under the age 15, 16, you're just stuck in a cornfield. You're kind of just chilling.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's a lot of the reason I do nothing but work out. So I had nothing else to do other than the weights and the pull-up bar in my house, either that or video games. Like you get sick of enough COD after sitting there long enough, you know?
Any desire to go back to a place like that?
To go out in the woods like that?
Yeah.
Oh, being here makes me want to do that. Driving through all the way here and being out in the sticks, and the fact that I peed in the field out here instead of using the bathroom is absolutely beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I could scream and slam shit as much as I wanted to. The thing about the shed, I could, like, if I had a bad day, I could just Kyle pre-workout at the wall, leave it there. It's all over the fucking place. I'm not cleaning it up.
Yeah.
If the floor is dirty, I don't give a shit. There's blood there, great. Not going to unload the bar. I'll see you tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was something so spectacular about that just, I do miss it.
Yeah.
You know, but my friend Taylor, he ended up having a baby. Well, no, his wife, they had a child.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, like, I'd appreciate it if you, like, left the stomping grounds for a bit. And I kind of just took that as my sign. Like, this dude hasn't charged me overhead for years. He's looked out for me in many, many ways. I'll let you raise your kid, bro. I'll go harass some other people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So what led you to the Myrtle Beach area?
That was mainly him having his kid, and then Pump House opened. Like, it actually, you said, has it been here the whole time? It's actually like a year and a half old, maybe 2 years now. And once it opened, Wayne actually bought those kilo plates for me.
Yeah. Because where did you know it opened though?
Just locals.
So how far is Myrtle from where you grew up?
2 hours.
Okay.
2 hours. So we're like, we would go to like Garden City and Myrtle during like spring break in high school. My aunt had like a house there. I had family there. So it's not like I didn't like ever see Myrtle, and I just like randomly moved there. Like, I was kind of like in the area all the time growing up.
So you're familiar with it?
Yeah, so I was familiar with all the gyms and everything, and how they all sucked. And then when Pump House opened, I was like, oh shit, like finally a place. And then I like walked in there, it was like all pound plates. Wayne was like, you can fit, 855 on the squat bar with the pounds. That you ain't seeing anyone squat 855 on pound plates like that, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Not if they do, they're 1,000-pound squatters. It's not like, I need kilo plates. I have this shit in my garage. So he went and bought kilo plates, and I was like, I told him, I was like, if you get those, I'll be there. And he got them for me. I was like, all right.
Mm-hmm.
Wayne being the monster he was, I was like, this will probably be better for me than training alone. And doing everything completely by myself all the time, like, being to be around, even if it's just one other freak,
And at that point in time, did you already have your online client base kind of developed?
Yes, by a substantial margin, 2 years. My online business really kicked off like around the time I got my knee surgery, because I was sitting around and I couldn't do much else, and that's when I decided to like had so much time and energy, and I had to occupy myself with something. So that's what I poured it all into.
So what led to the knee surgery? What caused the injury?
So when I was at Midland, they required me to take a lifetime fitness class, and it was like I had to play basketball in it. I was like juking around, and I felt my knee, and it was like it's a little sore. Like next day, like, that's weird. I just kept eating on it, training on it. I got a little swollen. It was a very minor tear that I never really addressed, or I just competed on it for like 2 to 3 years. It wasn't like big enough to take me out. And then one day I was doing sumo block pulls. I was pretty dehydrated. I wasn't on top of my recovery at all the day before. I was kind of being negligent. And then on the sumo block pull, it felt like I broke my leg, how bad it was. So it was a bucket handle meniscus tear flipped to a discoid meniscus, whatever that means. And dude, my knee was like, it swelled up so much. Like I've torn pecs and a bicep, and it's all like, I'm good in like 2 weeks, deload, some blood flow, get back into it, whatever. Maybe you got to like alternate your workout. Well, suck things out, whatever. But this, I was like, I'm fucked, So in hindsight, I wish I waited a little bit to get the surgery. Maybe it would have been 100% necessary, but I didn't even know the things I could have done that I know now. Like when I tore my groin like 3 weeks ago, probably about 24, 25 days ago. And the first day I tore it, I just kind of went home and coped, whatever, and went to bed. I didn't get my steps that day. Next day, I went and I did adduction machine. I walked 10,000 steps. I did a cold plunge. I was immediately, trying to, and it's like it was inflamed and like walking hurt, but I was still just going to get that movement in. And over time, the inflammation went down, the bruising went down. I started getting ability back. And I kind of wish I tried that approach with my knee with more patience, but I was just so freaked out because I went to the doctors and so many of them just look at you like, yep, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Like, I want to lift weights. Like, yeah, good luck. You know what I mean? And at the time, I didn't have the confidence to be like, oh, they don't understand this.
Yeah.
Too, they don't live this. Basically, it's not that they don't have any knowledge and they're stupid, but this isn't their realm of understanding. And after my knee surgery, that's when Ben Patrick messaged me, and he was like, yo, you should try my stuff for your knees.
How were you on his radar for him to message you?
Maybe I messaged him. Maybe I got like an ad and I like messaged him and he messaged me back. But it was like, I was like, yo, do you think this would help me? Because I went through this. And he was like, I think so. Yeah, it would. And I was like, okay, but all the doctors said this and this and this. And I don't know if you understand. Like, I'm really, really fucked. And he was like, here's like an article on my website. Just read it for free. And I started talking about like things the tibialis. I've never trained my tibialis ever. I've been working out 10 years when I read that article. You didn't know you could do that. And I read it and it made like, all right, if I came up to you and I was like, yo, I have bicep tendonitis. I train triceps 3 times a week. I haven't done a curl in 2 years. What should I do?
Mm-hmm.
It's very simple. You should train your biceps. Nice. You should train your biceps. But then when it comes to the tibialis, it's like people like act like it's just this, like a lot of people, they completely discredit it. And I think it's just because Knees Over Toes guy got so much popularity and traction that they don't want to, it's kind of popular to hate on something that works. But it's basically just training all the musculature around the knee. Like to me, it's like, I understood that. Like, oh, your back hurts. You train your core, your hip flexors, your glutes. You check your lats out, like everything above and below the joint. And the knee, I knew it was true, but I just wasn't addressing all the points, all the chinks in the armor. So that, the ATG split squat, the sissy squat, because the whole knee over toe thing, like I was avoidant of that. I wasn't like, it's not like when I squatted, I was like scared my knee was gonna go over my toe. But like when I went and did accessories, I wasn't doing sissy squats. I wasn't putting myself in the vulnerable positions and actually strengthening my knee. And after I tore my knee, I never did that. I just continued doing basic powerlifting training. And now I've had clients under me that get like minor meniscus tears that are probably similar to the first meniscus tear I've had. And I'm like, yo, let's just back off. Like no barbell squats for a week. We'll do some sled. We'll do some bodyweight squats. We'll try to do the tibia and this. And within like 2 to 3 weeks, they're good. They're back barbell squatting with like very similar loads. And I see that, and I'm like, that's kind of why I think the knee injury was a blessing, because it's like now I'm very capable of helping people going through this.
Yeah. So after that surgery, how long did it take you to get back to where you were prior surgery?
They told me it was going to take me a year. Before the surgery, it was a 635 squat, a 470 bench, and a 710 deadlift on a stiff bar. My squat actually blew up. I went from like a 635 squat, and I actually squatted 777 in my shed in the gym with no spotters. And my squat made the most insane increase. I think it's because I started training my quads in those positions, and I just started training my legs all the time, trying to make my knees strong. My deadlift didn't really increase that much. I think a lot of it's because I had to pull conventional for a long time. In my head, I probably stuck to conventional longer than I needed to because I was scared to go back to sumo, since it was just the thing that like
hurt it.
It's like if you get in a fucking car crash and you drive by that spot, you drive real cautiously, and that when you have caution, you're trying to lift heavy weights. So it hurts you a lot more than it helps you. My bench, it definitely just continued trending up. I think I ended up benching put 30, 40 pounds on my bench that year. But my squat was a thing that made the most substantial growth, and I think it was all a credit to like my knees just being stronger, because I didn't hit, after I initially tore my meniscus, I didn't hit a squat PR for a long time, because like I do a hard heavy leg day, my knees would be so trashed that I almost couldn't do too much after. But now it's like I can squat, I can hack squat, I can do the sled, I can rip these Nordic, I'm able to handle a lot more of like actual hard shit and stay in one piece of it. And that's kind of what drives my progress. Like a lot of people look at like, oh, how's that ATG split squat going to carry over to an 800-pound squat? It's like, it really doesn't. But what it does is it keeps my knees healthy enough that I can train my squat hard, that I can.
Yeah. So what was it like going from the university training setting, which is being around all powerlifters that are serious about what they're doing for the most part. And then in the shed, serious about what you're doing because it's just kind of you and a couple other people. And then into a commercial gym setting to where there might be some serious people, but there's a higher attrition rate. That if you do find some people that you think are serious, maybe they last 6 months, maybe they last 3 years, you have no idea. What was that transition like?
So at school, when I initially went to college, I was like, I have to get all my shit together because I'm going to be around all these world champions and they have all their shit together and they're 100% perfect all the time. And there were a few kids that were like, dialed and locked, but a lot of them are going out drinking, vaping. They're just amazing athletes anyway. You know what I mean? So it's not like all of them were extremely locked in. There's a few and they still have an impression on me. And I think back to those days and how they approached things and how just a belief system some of them had more than anything, because they all had their different training methods. No one trained the same really, but they like all the kids that were good, they just knew they were the shit. Like they all had like a little bit of an ego to them. So going from that to training alone, to me it's like I already kind of like took what I needed from that experience. I know these motherfuckers exist. I know how they operate for the most part, so I applied that. And training alone, it's like it was all on me. It wasn't. If I had a bad day, it was on me. If I had a great day, it was on me. At first I hated it and then I loved it. It was a love-hate relationship depending on the day you had.
Sure.
But with the training hall, there's just so many other variables, especially dealing with college classes. Everyone's stressed out, especially towards the end of a meet prep, compared to a commercial gym setting. Like it's in all of those environments, you kind of create your own environment in my head. You know what I mean? Like, if some dude can be benching 135 next to me in this commercial gym, I don't give a shit. It is not going to affect me. It is not going to determine how heavy I go on this set. The one thing is I'll be like pump and people be like watch me warm up. And I'll like squat 650 for 3. Like, dude, why was that? I was like 650. They're like, holy shit. Like, dude, what are you going to put on there? I was like, dude, I'm about to try to load like 100 pounds more on this. Please calm down. Yeah, let's not make this a big deal. Like I'm trying to even that ghost class that happened after my second attempt bench in the warm up room, some dude walked up to me. He tried to shake my hand, like, congratulations, dude, that bench was. I'm like, dude, what are you? Hold on, like give me like 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, it's not done yet. Like I don't. Let's not make a big deal about this yet. Because I'm trying not to. I don't want it to be a big deal in my head. I just want it to be like, oh, this is a bench.
Yeah.
Like I don't want it to be this giant, like Mount Everest thing I have to climb. Where I feel like if you're around like absolute freaks of nature, they don't see it like that either. It's like, yo, just hit that. But if you're around people that just don't get it at all, like they see, like if you're in a gym where the people are like quarter squatting 225 and then like the strongest dude in there has like a 405 squat. If you want to squat 700 pounds, that mountain seems giant.
Yeah.
But if you to experience that training hall, and it's like, oh, there's like 7 teenagers in here ripping 700 pounds off the ground. I should do that. I should be able to do that with ease. I should be better than them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it warps you a little bit. But I feel like if you just experience that even a few times, you carry it with you. Even if you're not like around it and like surrounded by it 24/7, you can't unsee certain things.
Yeah. Well, it will change your perception of what strength is.
Yes, by a lot.
Yeah. Where the first place I started training as a teenager, most of the guys, they were benching 405. So even if I'm just benching 250, 315, whatever it is, it's still not 405.
It's irrelevant.
Where if I was in the high school gym training all the time.
You're God.
Yeah. Then
they see the second plate and they worship you.
Yeah. And you can get caught up in that perception to think, this is good enough, but not really. You have more potential that you don't even know.
Big fish, small pond.
Yes. And the same thing happens to where you compete.
Mm-hmm.
You can always compete in the local meets.
And be a big fish in a small pond.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I've always I think I've done one local meet in like the past like three years or something. And it was really fun. I love local meets because there's no pressure. You're usually with your friends and it's like the least amount of stress. You don't have to travel as far. You don't have to pay as much money. Like they're awesome. I'm not trying to hate on them, but there's something just so special about going to a big meet and like for me not being the strongest person there. Like I want to beat these guys. I don't want to come here to lose. That's not what I signed up for. But I want to be pushed. I want a reason to have to train harder than I've ever trained before. I want a challenge, Like if I go to a local meet and I hit all my openers and I win, It's like I can also beat up an 8th grader. It's not going to make me feel good about myself. You know, it's not actually a win. If you're a black belt and you beat a white belt, did you actually do something? You know?
Yeah. So how did it, because you just made a statement, which is interesting. We talked about it a little bit last night, is to train harder than you ever have before. How has that perception changed over your career?
Dude, I've always thought I was training extremely hard and that I could never train harder. And then like after I do a meet or something, I like look back and I'm like, I could have did this. I could have did this. That one day I was soft and I skipped this. I shouldn't have. Or the 2 reps on hack squat I knew I had, but I didn't do because the program only said to do X. You know what I mean? Like, and even if it's not even in the gym, it's like maybe like there's a while I was working with Tom Havlin's like diet coach, and I was so locked in on my meals. I was weighing everything. I was so I don't do that year round. You know, they could be doing things like that, so I'm more fueled to go train hard. It's just being better and whatever is going to project me in the direction I want to go in. It's not necessarily going to the gym and like, oh, I took an extra scoop today, gonna really push harder than the last. It's not quite that simple.
Well, let's go a little bit more in the weeds with that, because some people training hard could be meaning that they're going to miss the same weight 3 times. And
that's ridiculous. That's not training hard. That's training idiotic. You know, like training hard to me, it's like, in the past few months, I've had some good sessions. I hit an 804 deadlift for 2 singles in a session, a 705-3 low bar squat triple, 705-2 SSB, a 551 bench. The hardest session that I had was 3 sets of 5 sleeveless, like 530 on the SSB, like 2 months ago. I remember after the second set, I sat there with like my hands in my face. I don't know why I was just so miserable this day, but this was one of those days I was like, I can't do it. I cannot do it. I can go home right now and just try again tomorrow. And then I did the 3rd set, and it ate me alive for what it was, and it hurt. And I like got through it, and I was like, that was like harder than every other set I've done for the previous month. So it's, to me, training hard is basically doing the shit you don't want to do like you love it. It's not, oh, I get to work up to this heavy top single and have fun, and then afterwards I'm gonna not do shit. Like, no, that's not really.
Well, the other side of the training hard too is doing all the other things that you have to do to be prepared to be able to do those sets in the first place.
Exactly.
So it's go into that a little bit and how that's changed over time.
Especially like, I feel like powerlifting back in the day, didn't have that. Like people didn't focus on mobility. They didn't focus on nutrition. They didn't take things from the bodybuilding world as much. You know what I mean? Where now I feel like it's like it all kind of mixes. And I feel like that's why, like, I feel like CrossFit's exploded a lot it's helped powerlifting explode a lot due to all that. You know, like Squat U is a great example of how many people he kind of like brings in till it's like, oh, here's how you fix your FAI or whatever, you know?
So how has your training progressed over time?
I've learned to deload. I started deloading every 4th week after I hired Josh. It used to be 5 days a week and an insane amount of volume, almost too much a lot of times.
Yeah, when did that happen? When did you bring Josh on as a coach?
I hired him.
Josh Bryant, by the way, for those listening.
Jailhouse Strong. I hired him like 12 weeks out from Ghost, not this past year, but the year before, for a meet prep. And that prep, he didn't really know me well enough to like, you know, you kind of, if you want to hire him in the off season and work with him. And honestly, do the prep alone if you had to pick one. I'd do both. But you had to pick, like, his building up in the off season, give him a kind of chance to learn my body, what I respond to, what works for me. It takes a little bit of time for any coach to figure that out. So I don't feel like I gave that to him. I didn't have the best prep. And then after that, like having an off season with him, seemed like every single meet I just improved. And it's like I can't say I have a winning formula yet, but I have a progressing formula. And for that reason, I don't really care to change it. And I trust him because every time I get better and better.
How many days a week then are you training?
It will range from 4 to 5, but the days, like my Wednesday workout, the one I did yesterday, was fairly short. It'll be like an hour and a half, where it used to be like 3 to 4 hours every day. In my head, it's like I have to do more than everyone if I want to beat everyone. Where Josh is kind of like, yo, you're getting like you're kind of at a playground instead of a battlefield, hanging out there all day. Like, just get in there, kill it, get out. You know, like that shift helped me a lot.
It's interesting. You playground versus a battlefield makes a lot of sense.
He used that analogy. Yeah. So there was a period I would go squat, bench, and deadlift on like a Saturday. I would do like 8 sets of squats after a top single, like 8 triples. Then I'd do the same thing for bench. And then I'd do like 8 sets of like 2 on deadlift. I would go home, shower, eat, come back, and do accessories. And I trained like that for like months on end. Like, it wasn't the most sustainable, but I somehow like ate it for periods. And I got strong, but I got stronger when I bought an Xbox and I started working out like 2 hours a day and just sitting on my ass and playing a game. And it sounds crazy. And not many people are going to need to be told that. They're not going to be told, oh, you're doing way too much. You need to chill out. But like if you have someone who's on that end of the spectrum, just reeling them back in just when they're like beat up so they can go push again, you know?
Well, it's also a way to take your brain off of the training.
Yeah, and to just decompress.
Yeah, because you're focusing on something else instead of just sitting around all day long thinking about that next session.
And killing yourself or just training all day long.
Yeah. And so as this is over the past couple years, what's some of the adversity that you've run into and how did you overcome that? Adversity being injuries or, just sometimes there's bad training sessions. Sometimes there's also bad training phases.
Yeah. I just trained through it all. I just never missed a day. I always had my training. It was always something I leaned on. Mm-hmm. The people who mentored my training, they always provided me guidance.
So when do you know when to, if it is bad training months, like you said, are you trying to back it down a little bit or are you trying to push harder through it?
It kind of depends. Because if I'm having bad training, it depends on why my training sucks. I try to reevaluate that. Like, does my training suck because I just haven't been eating how I should? I'm not eating enough and I'm being lazy. And I'm going out to eat too much, eating trash. I'm not getting my micros and my protein in the way I should. I haven't been drinking my water. If my training sucks for that, I just need to get my shit together. You know what I mean? If my training sucks, like when I first hired Josh, he had me rucking twice a week. And I think that works for a lot of people. It was a lot on my lower back and I couldn't really deadlift heavy for a while. So I stuck that out and I was like, hey, what if we just like didn't do this and saw how my lower back could recover and I could deadlift heavy. But you kind of have to commit to something for a few months. And it's hard to say like what's causing what. So I go through this process of just trying to figure it out, trial and error, basically. Like, what if it's not working? Like, why? But you also kind of have to give it some time. Like, when I hired Josh that first prep, even though I didn't feel like the strongest, I did throughout that prep. There's something to trusting the process to where it's like, even if we don't figure it out now, we will figure it out.
Was there an increase in workload? Just overall training volume?
It's probably a decrease.
Okay.
Probably a substantial decrease. He had me bench twice a week. I was used to 3 to 4
times. That's saying something because he usually has higher volumes to other people, which means that your volume.
It was ridiculous. It was a ridiculous amount. The thing, Josh, he puts a lot of volume. Like the 8x8s on lat pull downs, the 10 sets of sled, 8x8s on seal rows, set of 50, 40, 30, and 20 on leg extension with 60 seconds rest. That's one thing. But like when it comes to squat, like I think the most volume he's ever wrote me was like a 5x5.
Mm-hmm.
Or like I think I had like a 3x15 on like a slant board squat one day. It was like an accessory thing. But in terms of like actual like main lift volume, like bench, go do a 3x3 at 789. And afterwards you can do Spoto press 3x3 at 789. And 6 sets of bench. That's it. Like I might total like 12, 13 sets of bench at the end of my week, where before it was probably like 30 to 40.
All right. So if I'm understanding what you're saying, if the training isn't clicking the way it's supposed to, unlike what most people do, they look to manipulate the training. You're looking at all the variables outside of the training
and the training
first.
Yes.
So you look at those variables first, and most of the time for most people, those are probably where the issue.
No one's 100% perfect on any of those things.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you can't recover from training 5 days a week. What's your protein intake? It's like, well, you're a 200-pound man. You're eating 140 grams a day. No shit, you can't recover.
Yeah.
Like instead of like dropping down to 4 days a week to accommodate you not having your shit together, what if you just got your shit together?
Well, that's a good point though, right? Because what a lot of people will do is they'll lower the training, but keep that protein the same. But then basically all they're doing is kicking the can down the road. They're not going to get any better. Mm-hmm. To where they look at those other variables, if they're off, and then fix those, then they actually maybe they need more training, but they didn't have the fuel to be able to recover from that. And so are you also looking at sleep and recovery mode? Well, let's just go with sleep first. So when you're looking at those outside variables, stress, sleep, and nutrition, nutrition sounds like it's the first thing that you're going to, and that would include the hydration as well. And then do you look at the sleep and do you look at the stress?
Steps and stress. And stress is a tough one because like some people, like my buddy Taylor I was talking about, like he's taken over like a very, very large corporation business. Like he's just going to have a fair amount of stress. So when it comes to someone who's like high stress, they don't have a lot of time, like 4 days a week is great. It's like, oh, I'm a college student. I'm under a lot of stress. 5 days. Mm-hmm. Get over it.
Yeah.
Your life isn't that hard, actually. Like, you have to do laundry and you're learning to do chores and go to class for like 3 hours. Like, it's actually like, you're not the CEO of a country, of a company, you know? So it kind of depends who I'm talking to on how, like, I address that. But like some people, like, if you work like night shift and your sleep shit, it's like, well, let's try to find a job that doesn't suck.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I can't do that yet. I was like, all right, well, then maybe training like 4 days a week. Well, since your recovery isn't going to be the best,
Yeah.
is the option. Because sometimes people are just kind of stuck with shit like that. But it's like, oh, I didn't sleep because I'm on TikTok. It's like, dude, you know what the answer to this is.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need me to spoon feed this to you. Just put your fucking phone down. Like, how do I get better sleep? Like, put your phone down, turn the TV off. Like, make it cold and dark in your room. It's very simple.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, just don't blast. I had a monster at like 7 p.m. yesterday. Don't do that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
very simple things. But it's kind of hard to do when in terms of coaching, helping someone, because so many people are kind of in denial.
Yeah.
Or they're just completely unaware of what they're doing. You know what I mean?
Well, do you think it's unaware? Or do you think it's just the denial? I think that they're aware, but they just
Don't want to do anything.
just don't want to do anything about it. But it is simple.
Mm-hmm. Simple doesn't mean easy.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of people like think it does, and like they come to me and I always have very simple answers. I noticed that about Ed Cohn too, and I was talking to him about that. And he said, "There's genius in simplicity." You know, if you can explain it to a 4-year-old, you truly understand the topic. And usually if I'm talking to someone, they're talking like way above my head and I can't grasp it at all. I'm pretty much like, my bullshit detector's going off.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I met this old guy. He was at my gym and his knees all swollen up. And he was talking to me. I helped another guy named Dean at my gym. And he was telling me, he's like, Dean told me I should hire you for my knees, but my T-band is strained and my knee's swollen. And as soon as I get this under wraps and it's in good shape, I'm going to work with you. I was like, well, what are you doing for your knee and your IT band? He's like, well, nothing. I've been doing upper body and that's about it. I was like, well, it doesn't sound like you're ever going to hire me. You know, it doesn't sound like you're ever going to get in shape. And I showed him like a tibia raise. When I explained it to him, I was like, have you ever, like, how many doctors have you been to? He was like, a lot. How many physical therapists, chiros? Like, a lot. And I was like, has anyone ever shown you this? No. I was like, and the tibia, like, I used the bicep and tricep analogy, and it was like very easy to digest and understand to him. I was like, it makes sense, doesn't it? He's like, yeah, and I can feel it. It truly is like, if it's right, it's usually like pretty easy, you know, like very, very easy to digest and understand.
As you've been going through all these, soon here, I'm gonna pivot into the coaching aspect of the whole thing. But before getting into that, let's go through the last meet that you did. What was that? Was it
This Ghost?
The Ghost Clash. How was the training going into that?
It was fun. It was great. And I think it was probably one of the best preps I've had. I think I pulled 800 in training once. I benched 535 in training twice, 2 times that prep. And I think I squatted 760. I hit 734 on my second squat and I stood up with soft knees, so I had to retake it for my third. I think I had more for every single lift on Ghost. At Ghost, I could have squatted more, I could have benched more, I could have deadlifted more. And I think that was a great place to be, to kind of roll into the next one. But every prep I ever have, you ask me how it goes, I didn't want to say good, because it's like, I think about I did fail some shit. Yeah, some shit. I definitely dealt with a strain. I think I tore my hamstring a few weeks out because Josh ripped me tempo runs. And instead of doing a tempo run, you wrote like 50%. I read that. I was like, go run around as hard as you can on the bench. That's what I did. And then eventually, you know, so I rehabbed that, and I was kind of like, is it going to be good? Is it going to be like in shape for this thing? Am I going to tear my hamstring if I try to take this deadlift? Like, am I, you know, so there's always that uncertainty. Like, I talk to so many people like, oh, it's such a shit prep. I'm like, dude, I've done like 25, 30 of these things. I don't know if I've ever got through one. And I was like, oh, that was a great prep. And sometimes maybe I've had like 1 or 2 of those, and I went and I had a shit meet after. Yeah. And that's the craziest part. Then you have a meet where you feel like shit, you feel like death. The first American Pro, that was like a super meet for me. That was my first 2K total and like a 70-pound, 60-pound total PR. I don't quite remember exactly. But I remember like a week out, I was like, I'm not going to do it. I had Dan Grigsby's coach, Casey, at the time. She was helping me. She's like, you should go do this thing. I was like, you don't understand. I failed 2 to 3 squats. My back hurts. My bicep tendons hurt. There's no way I'm going to be able to like go put up anything even worthwhile. I'm embarrassed to where I'm at and how this prep turned out. Like, I'm pretty humiliated, you know? And then it's like I went and competed, and that day, gravity just wasn't real. Like it didn't affect me. I had the power of God running through my veins, dude. Especially for that third deadlift. I think a lot of it was due to like the environment that the first American pro had, because it did feel like a way more of a spectacle than the second one, you know. But it's funny how it works. Like you never really know the day you're gonna have till you're there, and you have it.
Well, one thing that I noticed is, outside of looking in, just watching the live stream of that last meet that you were in, is your patience was better, you know, to where you watch you in other meets. I mean, there's no doubt your mind is, you know, aggressive and attacking everything, to where that in the past, I think it's worked against you
A little bit, yeah.
sometimes, especially the deadlift, right? Where in the last one, the patience was there. It's, to not be derogatory, it looked more like a professional power lifter than, you know, aggressive monster power lifter. Maniac. Yeah.
I know you can say.
Yeah. So did you put focus in trying to do that?
I just get more comfortable. It's not like I'm like I know being composed, you're gonna go farther with ice in your veins than rage in your heart, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's just collecting all that. I'm very expressive.
Yeah.
That's just how I am. So when I have this internal storm brewing, like you just see it.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm like intentionally doing it, but that's just, to me, I'm getting the mindset I feel like I need to get in to lift what I need to lift. My dad actually texted me after the last one. He gave me a compliment. It was like he's never really did that after a meet either, so it meant a lot to me. And he said something. He was like, great composure, and it was like
it was different. I mean, to illustrate a little bit, so if it's a squat, you can take yourself, you know, say if you're at a level 10 peak arousal, you would be like an 11 or a 12, right? Where being at that 9 or that 10 is that optimal place. Were you at that 12 and then before the actual lift had to crank it back down just a little bit, or is it just how it played out?
I didn't even necessarily intentionally calm myself down at all. Like if anything, I don't feel like internally I'm any more calm than before. It's probably just displayed a little differently. I'm just a little more comfortable on the platform. After I hit that first 2K total, it's almost kind of like, well, if I bomb this meet, it doesn't matter as much. Like I don't feel like I have this like desperate need to like prove, so, oh, you bombed out. Okay, yeah, I got 2080 total, dude. Like I had a bad day, whatever. You know what I mean? Where I think it's just getting more comfortable competing, and just it's a skill. Just being able to handle the pressure and the nerves of, it's like, oh yeah, go be calm. It's like, that's cool, but go put 770 on your back and tell me to be calm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's a different kind of calm that we're talking about.
Controlled.
It's controlled rage.
Controlled aggression.
Yeah, where there's rage and controlled rage. Where what I saw was that controlled rage. You know, and it's, you can get away with it on the bench. You can kind of get away with it on the squat, but with the deadlift, with kabuki bars and shit, you're not getting away with that. Brutal. You know, but it was controlled, you know, so then it kind of played out. Was that deadlifting more with the bar in training?
So I used to do this thing, you know, I feel like this is how deadlift has been taught, especially to like lifters of like when you start, is like where you really want to tighten the upper body. You like want to tighten your lats. You want to pull against the bar really hard. And when I did that on a stiff bar, you could kind of get away with it because the bar all catches at once. You know, when you pull, you can kind of just explode into it as hard as you want. You're not going to shift around too much. Doing that with a kabuki, it doesn't work. So I almost adopted like a hollow body, upper body, where I would like relax. And it lets me like actually get the slack out my arms and my upper body. I do it by pressing the ground away. And I literally tell myself.
What do you mean pressing the ground away?
With my feet.
Yeah.
Like quad, push. And then like open my taint, spread the floor to kind of wedge my hips in. But having my upper body relaxed, it almost allows my arm to get longer. And the way I'd prevent my like upper back from rounding was from like packing my head, engaging my neck. So it wouldn't look like my thoracic was severely rounded, but it was the adjustment of like learning to relax in the deadlift, relax the upper body specifically. And that kind of helped me master the slack of the kabuki, which they're saying now they want to get rid of. Which I think is hilarious after we've just imploded open powerlifting with this bar. You know, like we got guys deadlifting 1,000 pounds at 242, numerous of them. But yeah, let's put them on the stiff bar and see who can beat that now.
Yeah,
it's like good luck.
How have you managed meet selection of what meets to go to? This is a question I've asked all you guys because, you know, one meet name. I really don't even want to say federation because it's really more meet director oriented. It might be hot for a couple of years, but then it falls, but then something else happens. But you've all been able to manage getting out before it drops. And it's, to me, I'm thinking you all are like DMing each other, saying where you're going to go, but that's not what's happening.
No, you just see it.
Yeah. How do you see it?
I was talking about the first American Pro and how it's such a spectacle, and then the second they let so many more people in, is no longer really a professional meet. It's kind of just like, hey, we need this entry fee, and we're gonna have a 3-day event, and then it's like, why is this a 3-day event? If it's a professional, let them go compete at a local level, or let them, or have like an in between, like in USAPL, you got like local, regional, and national. We don't have you go win a local meet untested, which is probably easier to win than a tested local meet, even if you're not on shit, and then you go against John Hack. So you don't have fucking anything in between. If we had that, it wouldn't be as big of a deal, you know. But you can see that, and just honestly, it's just like when now ABS. I think pulling on a stiff bar and untested, I don't think that's the solution. To untested powerlifting, I feel like it's mainly due to the fact that we have no structure at all. Is the problem. I don't think a stiff bar is going to do it. It's because the tested guys have structure. That's why their shit does so well.
Yeah.
But the fact that ABS is going to have where all the competitors are. Like, hey, we're gonna pay you guys money. I'm like, all right, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're gonna pay me. I'm paying to play over here, but you're gonna pay me. I mean, I want to be a professional. I want to get paid to do it. You know what I mean? It's very cut and dry. It's like basically like what does the federation have to offer me? You know, not what do I have to offer this federation? I don't want to just give you $250 to have my name at your meet when, like, you know.
And so you'd say most of the other guys feel the same way.
Yes, and it's also just like where everyone's good is where everyone wants to go. You know, like the head-to-head is something special. Like it's like, oh, well, because if not, like say Grigsby keeps pulling on the kabuki bar and kabuki bar stays in powerlifting, and Jamal goes and he pulls on a stiff bar, then like the comparison is just like, it's just gone, you know, and there's so much division in it. It's like, dude, that's the problem with all like the last thing we needed was more powerlifting federations, you know, and new rules and all this. Like, dude, no, it's just been very cut and dry for a long time, you know?
Well, I think the way around that cut and dry is the fact that all you guys want to compete against each other, and you're going to go wherever that's going to be, no matter what that federation is, because that's the only way it's going to be able to get around all that. Where going in past decades, you would kind of see the opposite of that. There would be guys trying to avoid other people, you know, to be able to win.
Something.
Yeah, to be able to win.
Yeah, where, I remember hearing people talk about Ed Cohn in his prime, how you would just avoid his weight class.
Yeah,
like
or that federation or whatever it was going to be, for good or bad. You know, there's many other reasons and factors that kind of play into all that. But it's cool seeing what's happening with what you guys are doing now, because you want to compete and be pushed against the people that are better and stronger to be able to get you there and become better and stronger.
Iron sharpens iron. Yeah. Rising tides raise all ships. I think people are very aware of that now.
Yeah.
You know, and it's become more real in powerlifting, even just on social media. You were talking earlier today about how, like, well, you're only in the gym for an hour and a half a day, but your screen time's 8 hours and you're watching these superhumans all day. I think that has a huge impact on people's belief of what's possible. Yeah. You know, like now we have teenagers deadlifting 800 pounds. That's ridiculous. That shouldn't be a thing to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's absolutely appalling. Because I remember back in the day, Chris Hickson, Pete Rubish, Eric Littlebridge, they were like the only people like walking the planet doing that. Now we got skinny kids who can't fill out a medium t-shirt doing it. I don't get it. It's amazing. Yeah. But it's I think it's all, I don't want to say all due to social media, but they definitely have way better access to information. I think training has came a way farther way, you know, or at least the access to the knowledge. I'm not saying like Ed Cohn didn't know what he was doing back then, obviously, because he did. But it's not like you go to the store and you have that muscle mag. Yeah, is bullshit and lies. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you have these people like, here's my free program, here's my free tutorial, here's a visual of Dorian Yates walking 4 different people through an entire back workout. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't have that access.
Well, there's a way bigger talent pool to pull from. You know,
way better genetics.
It's just going to bring in the people with the better genetics that may not have necessarily been there before. You talked me through how you deadlift technically. How do you technically go through your squat for a heavy single?
I like to pull the bar down when I'm getting under the bar. I watched John Hack and Emerson Noble whenever they unrack, and I gathered something from watching them. And honestly, Hack on all 3 lifts. Well, I noticed as soon as when Hack gets under the bar, and Emerson too, and they both would like unrack like fucking 800 pounds, like nothing, at like 198, especially Emerson. Like he unracked with such authority. And I noticed like as soon as he like placed that second foot, it was like, Like as soon as he got his feet under, he racked immediately. It's kind of like, and I noticed that about John on his bench and his deadlift too. And I do that on my bench setup. Like I swing out and I just straight to it. He deadlifts, he bends down, grabs it, picks it up. There's no nonsense. He's not hanging out under the bar before he unracks. So I would do that before I pick. One big breath, and I flex my quads real hard, walk it out, and try to do 3 steps. Little breath out, little breath in, pull the bar down, pat my chin back like you taught me. You guys saw that, keep me upright. Yeah, I feel like it gives me like better pelvic control. I know ribs down is a very popular, like that's how everyone should squat. And it's like, I know Chris Duffin made that very popular. I think it's bullshit. I think someone told me it was bullshit. And what I do, to engage my lats, and then I take my pelvis and I give myself a posterior pelvic tilt to keep me from being into an interior tilt from my chest, if that makes sense. So it's sternum up, chin back, posterior pelvic tilt, and whenever I lower myself, I'm shooting my knees forward instead of pushing my butt back, and I'm opening my tank.
Yeah.
So that's how I visualize the squat. For bench, it's just...
So with the squat, as you're going down, because there's going to be tactile feedback, as you're going down, you're going to feel the strain on the quads or however it's going to be. So as that's going down, where are you feeling the strain on the way down? Because a max lift for you at this level, it feels like it's 30 seconds, right? Yeah. It's not the 5 or 8 seconds that we see, and your brain is being processed to like 8 seconds because you feel the tension. Then if the tension is not where it's supposed to be, you're going to shift for that tension to be there. So on the downward or the eccentric, where are you looking for the tension?
I try to dump it all into my quads.
Okay.
I'll dump it all into my quads. I do have a wider stance, so I use a fair amount of groin, but I try not to like push my hips back like people at Westside used to do. Well, because I don't feel like I have that suit to like sit back into. So I'm trying to dump it all into my quads. I think that's what most raw lifters would do. And I feel like a lot of people would benefit more from a knee forward approach than a butt back approach.
Yeah.
Assuming they have like the ankle.
So if you start to feel it shifting onto the hamstrings, then you know that you're shifting.
I've lost my position a little bit. I've lost my position.
Yeah.
And sometimes that happens. Sometimes I just fuck up a rep. But like the best squat reps I ever do, I feel like when I can stay in my quads, like my upper body doesn't shift. But if I like, it's definitely more strain on my back and my hamstrings. But when you say, where do I feel it? I'm kind of not feeling anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll feel 500 pounds. I'll feel like 600 maybe. But then when it gets to a certain point, when it's heavy, it's like I feel it on my back.
Yeah.
And that's about it. I squatted 700 for a double like a few months ago. I remember the back spotter was like under me, and just with how much I fold and like how lanky I am, his arms kind of got like sandwiched between my like legs and my torso. And he apologized. I was like, I wasn't trying to fuck you up, dude. I didn't feel that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel you touch me. I'm not even like trying to sound like
no, I get it. Yeah,
like I'm some badass, or like I feel like I'm very present too, and I'm very focused. But just the sensation of like touch, it's not there, not while I'm straining. Like I don't, like even after unless something like went wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't feel it for like that's more than I wake up. I'm like, holy fuck. Like I just ran through a brick wall. Yeah. You know what I mean? But like a few 2-3 minutes after, I'm usually like fucking still riled up, and it's not, the adrenaline's high, the endorphins are high. Like pain isn't real.
Yeah.
So
now walk me through the bench.
I like to set up behind the bar. I feel like a lot of people miss out from that. I actually got that from...
Well, why do you not take a lift off?
Because I trained in the shed for so long, and I got so good at self-unracking weights that if I try to take a hand off, it just feels stupid. I feel like I can't get it set right, where if I like... that's where it goes. Like I can do it so efficiently, and then I go to a meet, and I get such a fast start command, and I feel like it honestly gives me like a faster like pause too, because I can take it down so fast. Like I feel like the amount of time I have to spend like holding the bar is just so minimal. And I do have training partners and people that can like help me. And like if I perfected a handoff, would it maybe give me like another 5-10 kg? Maybe, but I've just done it this way for so long, and I like doing it this way. And I train, like it's pretty cool just going to the gym. It's like I have safety rails, and I can bench 550, and I need no one.
Mm-hmm.
I need absolutely no assistance. That's pretty cool feeling. And people be watching me do it, and they're like, "Are you okay? Like you want a spot?" And a lot of it too is because people at my gym, they're not Yeah, I mean,
Well, it can screw you up more.
yeah, they get scared.
Yeah.
They're more scared than I am
Yeah.
because they've never seen anyone bench more than 400 pounds. This dude's about to rep 5, and the third one starts getting a little grindy. One dude picks up one side, and fucking dumps on my pack. The first time I ever tried doubling 700 pounds on squat, I had that happen where the guy pushed up on my back when I was grinding the second rep because I got nervous and it kind of tweaked my left knee. So I'm better without a spotter. The safety rails haven't broke. They haven't failed me. You know what I mean? Like worst case scenario, if I go down, dude, it'll catch the bar. I just make sure they're set at like a pretty damn good height. That way I'm not like destroying my barbell if I do have to bail.
Yeah. So, okay. So you start behind the bar.
Okay.
Yeah.
I start behind the bar. I take my breath before I unrack, and I do not exhale at all through the entire set. I think I did like a set of like 53 on floor press one time with 225, and I don't think I exhaled till like 27. But granted, I did those reps, like they're not like full rainbows. I did those reps very quick since it's so light I could rep it out. But if it's like a hard set of 10, I might need to breathe. Like if I did like 420 for 10, I might need to exhale a little bit at like 8 and then take in like another breath for 9 or 10. But I don't breathe at all, or very minimally if I do have to breathe. I sit behind the bar and I swing in. So I think that the swinging in really helps me get my back tight. And before I swing out, I set my feet first. So if you look at me before I swing out, my feet never move. So I kind of use that to like wedge myself into the position. I'm not very tight at all. I feel like my butt is down on the bench. Like a lot of people, they talk about the self unrack. Like, oh, I have to have my ass a mile in the air to self unrack on bench. It helps myself. I'm like, dude, like I self unrack more than anyone I've ever seen, and I don't do that. And then they like use a lot of leg drive after they have their ass in the air for their setup, and then their butt comes up when they have to like drive their legs hard. Like, I don't know why my butt's coming. It's like you started the set with your ass a mile in the air. Like, that's why you have no lower body and tightness in your hips and your back. To me, witnessing that. So when you do drive, it's just going to go back to where you started initially. Where like initially my idea I got from Eric Spodo's video on super training years ago is like that wide stance. Like basically my hips I'm trying to get to the point they're so tight that like I can drive as hard as I want and it won't come up. So it's hard to kind of figure out where that position is for most people. But generally I find like your feet are going to be a little like right under your hips or a little in front of it, and a real wide stance, because a wide stance kind of enables you to get your knee lower to your hip without having to go on your toes. I don't like benching on my toes. I tried it for many times. Again, I had that USAPL background, and I did bench on my toes for like a year and a half, and my range of motion was less, but I wasn't as stable. Where when I'm like benching flat foot, the way I think about it, if I took you over there to that leg press, if we do like a sissy squat leg press or a leg press with your feet flat, which one are you going to move more weight?
Yeah.
Your feet flat.
Yeah.
So you're going to be more stable and it's safer, right? So same thing for a squat. You don't want to deadlift on your toes. If you're trying to do an overhead press on your toes, you're not going to be stable at all. You know, so like you're more stable with more of your foot connected to the ground than not connected to the ground.
Yeah.
For every exercise.
Yeah.
So why is the bench press different? That's how I see it. I know there's people that bench more than me on their toes, so I'm not trying to like go get like it. But to me, that's how it always made sense. And I felt like I could like get like I get a ridiculous amount of leg drive with my feet flat, where I didn't feel like I could get that on my toes. But swing out, when I unrack, a lot of people like when they take their handoffs, they like unrack with their elbows already in that like tuck position. I like guillotine press it out the rack that way, because it's like everyone talks about you want stacked joints when you bench. You want like think about when you unrack. If you're here, your joint isn't stacked. But if my elbow is directly under the bar, it is stacked. Like, a lot of people are scared that's gonna like hurt their shoulder. I've had no issues doing that with myself unrack. Feels great on my shoulder. So that's sternum up, chest up. And I think about my lats on the way down. Like I unrack it, and if I'm at a meet and I have a big bench in my head, I tell myself, take it down hard, don't be a pussy. So I don't try to tempo bench it down at all. I take it down aggressively. I try to take it down fast. I think it kind of gives you like a stretch reflex. I do sink a little bit, but it's not much. I try to stay tight. And whenever I like throw it off my chest, the only thing I really think is just push. Just push as hard as you can. It's like I roll the bar down hard and then just throw it as hard as I can with I use my pinky toe, my big toe, every muscle from my neck all the way down I'm going to use to get this up. It is not just a chest exercise.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of people, they have this idea of like, well, it's just bench press. It's a nap between the real events, and then they wonder why their bench is 315 like 20 years into training. It's like, dude, your attitude sucks about this.
Yeah.
That's why your bench sucks. Your attitude towards it and how you treat it as a whole is absolute garbage. If you want your bench to contribute to your total, you have to treat it like it's like a part of your total. You know?
Yes.
Yes. Well, not for a lot of people, dude. Not for some of these dudes with like a 286 bench and a fucking 800-pound deadlift. Like it just, you know?
Yeah. I need to use the restroom real quick, and we'll come back and talk about the coaching aspect. All right, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, so now we're going to jump into the coaching aspect because you've been coaching for a long time. So when did you first start coaching?
After my first meet, I was one of those people.
Oh, yeah.
ING as that is. But I was also training people since I was, honestly, when I was 14 years old, like my friends in high school, I took them to my gym and I was guinea pigging on, you should do this, you should do that. They didn't watch the YouTube videos and like study that shit with their free time when they got home from school. That was like my thing. And I would like share it. And all my friends would get like jacked. And when I got to be like 16, there's a few grown men that would like, there's one guy, he actually took me to church. His name was Chip Threadgill. I trained with him for a summer. He was like, pick me up from school sometimes, take me to the gym, we'd train. There's another guy named Brad. I actually trained him. I put him on my own bastardized version of Windler 531. So I was training people. That was mainly for free at the time. Just anyone that would listen to me. And that the Brad guy, he would take me like a hibachi buffet as like his payment to me. And I would just sit there and like eat as much steak as I could because my parents didn't understand. Like, why do you need to eat so much? They just couldn't understand what I was going for at the time. So he'd basically just feed me. But I started doing that and like training people more so for powerlifting after my first meet, which was obviously not many people take you on. I think I'm charging like $50 a month. I'm writing people like full meal plans, programs, helping them in the gym for that, doing anything I could to try to get myself established. Majority of it was working for free. Like I still do that, but like I was just trying to basically like take someone and build them and show that I was capable and competent of doing that. In my head, if I can show that I'm good at what I do, someone will see that, someone will want to hire me. And that was my entire business model. That guy, Taylor, I actually initially met him because he got in a motorcycle accident. He lost his license and he had to walk to the gym. And I just see this guy walking to the gym. I don't know anything about him. And he's like, hey, I want to get in shape. And I was like, okay, I'll help you. And I helped him for free. I didn't know I was going to have a gym in his backyard and I was trained there for 3 years and he wasn't going to charge me a dime of overhead. It's not like I was like interacting with him. Like, that's what I'm going to get out of this, you know? But it's like this guy, he wants help. He wants to do this. And this is my opportunity to show that I'm capable and that I'm good at this and I can do something with that. And through that, things just came.
So outside of the powerlifting, you have a video pinned on your Instagram
Of my grandma.
of your grandma, you know, so what's the story behind that?
So my whole family, they're kind of like typical Americans in the sense that like, if you have a problem, you should go to the doctor. You know, you're old and you have a knee problem, doctor. Like the exercise doesn't work for old people. It's just too far gone. So a lot of it was actually out of pure spite. Because I'm like over here, like this old lady, like my grandpa died because it's not my grandma's fault or anyone's fault, but he was in older age, not in the best health. And my grandma was his caretaker. And my grandma had an Achilles tendon rupture. And after her rupture, I went and I had her doing tibia raises and calf raises. And I'd have her try to walk as much as I could. And we were having measurable progress. She was getting stronger on the tibia raise. She was getting more range of motion on the calf raise every week. And I was like, we don't need the surgery. Like, we can figure this out. Because I was worried if she got the surgery, my grandpa was going to have to go get taken care of by someone else. And I don't have the confidence they're going to do the best job. And, you know, my grandma, she's her own person. She made her mind up. She got the surgery. My grandpa ended up dying while she was like recovering in the hospital because they got his medications mixed up. He got real bloated and he passed. So I was very emotionally charged. And I was kind of fed up because it's like, and maybe I couldn't have like saved him from fixing my grandma's ankle. I know that sounds like very silly, but to me, that's how it felt. And so, she had that Achilles tendon rupture. She's already had a total knee replacement. She's been through a heart attack. She has one kidney. I was like, okay, I'm gonna make this my family doesn't seem to understand that this woman should drink water and exercise. Like, they don't seem to understand the gravity of that situation. So this is going to be my priority. And I kind of did it to prove a point, like, hey, exercise does work. Like, regardless of your age or what you've been through or who you are, or your gender, like, this will help you get out of the hole that you're in. And I would like talk to my grandma. A lot of it, she if I was her physical therapist, she would have fired me. Like a lot of people, like physical therapists would comment like, oh, I wish my patient had the will to do this at this age. Like, you think she wanted to do this? You think I didn't bully this old woman severely to get her to squat? That is hilarious, because it was like, there's a lot of days like, I don't want to do this. Like, come on. Like, I understand you're in pain, and I'm so sorry, but you're going to be in pain if you can't do a bodyweight squat, or you're going to be in pain from training and gaining the ability to do it again. And that squat, like, I initially had her, like, a lot of people read the caption, they thought like I got her to completely quit using a walker. That's not what I meant. But I said something. I said we used a walker and pillows. My grandma didn't want to go to a gym at all. So I was trying to like do all this shit in her house with no equipment, which isn't as, I'm working with pillows and a fucking couch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm stacking the pillows under her, so the range of motion for the squat isn't as high, and the pillows would sink actually like kind of like a foam pad on a box squat or something. And at first she had like the crutches here, and she would use her upper body to assist her squat. And it took us months to be able to get down to doing the squat. That little stool stepper thing she did off of, that was like, to me, it was around parallel. Like, that would have, to me, it's like, this would count in a USAP on me.
Yeah. Well, it's a toilet too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's not like I gave a shit to get her in a USAP on me.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's like, you need to be able to squat to depth. This will help your knees. It was the lowest she squatted in years. And it was more so just to kind of, I obviously wanted to help my grandma. I didn't want her to be in pain. I wanted her to be able to get off the toilet and get around. But it's just kind of like you don't just have to go to a doctor and do what they say and just wait her. Like, she goes for her knee issue. So, you can't exercise. It didn't get any better. Let's wait 8 more weeks. And if it doesn't get any better, then let's do surgery. So if we're sitting around waiting and you're going to get cut open anyway, why don't we at least try?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Why don't we at least try to fix this? And, it was also like an experiment for me, because I've worked with a few people above 60 years old now. I had one guy, he had severe knee pain when I came to him. He ended up getting a pair of knee sleeves. He was squatting in them. By the time I got him to be able to do a few ATG split squats with good form, I'd walk in and be squatting without his knee sleeves. I'm like, dude, put them on. He's like, my knees feel good. So it's kind of for me to gain, like I said, I work for free all the time, to gain the experience of working with like an older client, because it's not like, so someone in their 60s isn't going to look at me when I'm squatting 770 like, yeah, that's what I need to do, because that's not usually my clientele. So I wanted the experience of that too. And when you kind of have like, again, she couldn't fire me if she wanted to. Like, we're going to get this done. So it was a learning experience and a bonding experience with her. Like, I cried after that squat. I actually posted on my story, and I like covered the sound. I didn't think anything of it. And then Joe Sullivan actually messaged me. He's like, dude, you should post this. Then I posted. I was already crying before I posted it, because I don't want to say we put so much time into it. It meant a lot to us. And then like the reaction to it, I just bawled, dude. I couldn't help but cry, because it felt very small what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
It felt very small. Every single day, it's like I'm sitting here for hours trying to get this old lady to do a bodyweight squat. It's not like this ginormous, beautiful, flashy thing that's gonna, And then after I saw the impact, I think a lot of people it resonated with, because they think about their grandma, how they probably don't even call them, see them. I need to call my grandma now and go see her when I get back. It's been a while. But since I moved to Myrtle, I don't see her as much. She lived a lot closer to me, so that was also kind of during my isolation arc. I would train, I would go to her house and have a meal, and that kind of be between my workouts, like as I sat there and like trained her and talked to her,
So with the lifters that you're working with, we'll just take it lift by lift. So actually, let's start with just the training in general. What are the pitfalls that you see with the clients that are coming in, just with the overall training or mindset or their attitude towards trying to get stronger?
I wish I could say majority of the people that came to me were like absolute dogs, but they're not. Like, majority of people just actually like need to be told to try. The best athletes I have don't message me that much, and I wish they would. Like, they're the kind of athletes I'm like, hey, dude, you haven't sent me a video in 2 weeks. Please check in. He's like, okay, I hit a deadlift PR, by the way. It was 15 kg. I'm like, all right, thank you. Thank you for making my job easy. So everyone kind of comes. I have, I coached Keith, that kid out of California. He's got the all-time world record at 165 with like a 810, 804, one of those. And then I have people that just don't have any desire to compete at all. I have one girl that wanted to strength train because her mom fell at one point. She wasn't strong enough to get her mom off the floor. So that's why she wanted to start deadlifting. So that's why she did. She ended up doing a meet later on, but I didn't care if she ever did a meet. Like how you talk about, you don't care if people compete. Like, a lot of people come to me, it's like, well, I'm not a world-class competitor. I don't I don't care. I don't give a shit in the slightest. Like, if you want to compete, great. But like, if not, like, you want to train? You know, because for me, training is the bag. Even when I didn't compete for those 2 years, like, training was still the highlight of my day every day. Yeah, that's the shit that I love. You know, just being able to come here and express myself through this physical endeavor, more so than like competing is actually not that fun. It's pretty stressful. I don't sleep the night before. Afterwards, I'm so stimulated. I'm in the airplane on the way home, no music in, just just thinking, and it's a lot. It's a very stressful experience to the point after. It's like 2 to 3 weeks after a meet, I'm like really reflecting, especially since I'm like so all. And a lot of people they get out after their meet, they get back and they go back to their normal life. Me, my life is powerlifting. So after the meet, it's like, okay, well, I gotta figure out how to do better in 6 months. Oh, I didn't do good. I got to sit here and think about this shitty performance for 6 months and eat it, and then kind of use that to drive me forward to hitting bigger and better.
So with what are the technical issues that are most common with the squat?
I feel like a lot of people they shrug and they have their grip way too fucking close, and I hate that. I absolutely hate it. The 30-step walkout, shoving your butt back and not being able to the main thing about the squat is people don't know how to maintain upper body position. Like your rib cage, your pelvis, your back. Like if you learn how to set all of those, your legs will do everything. And it's a leg press. You literally just push. It's very simple. But a lot of people, they don't know how to stack their upper body well enough so that their legs can do their job. You know what I mean? They don't know how to engage their lats. They don't know how to pack their chin or brace their core properly. That's the main thing for squat. And a lot of it with people is the main thing I watch people is there's just a lot of hesitancy, fear, and I was talking about watching John, how he just goes for it. There's no squat, get under the bar, unrack it, walk it out, squat it. It's not get under the bar, wiggle around, fill your feet, move your grip a little wider once you get under the bar. Whip your head up and down 3 times, then unrack. It's just stop it. Like, a lot of times people come to me and they think I'm going to have this magical, oh, here's the one cue you need to add, when it's really like, hey, here's a bunch of things you need to stop fucking.
In there, hamstring. You see the glute stretching at the bottom. The nice part is his hips are able to stay back. Doesn't have to extend the hip at the top. Focusing all on the legs. Almost like leg press. Right? Pretty much. Yeah. You see the hamstrings hanging at the bottom. No heavy weight load on the spine.
Nah, this feels great. I think not to
Don't even say it.
Try to be biased, but I like the way this one feels.
Oh, okay.
Because at the end of the day, I'm still able to keep upright as a guy with longer legs. When I was squatting, trying to keep the bar pass straight, I would have a little bit more of a bend to be able to keep that bar pass straight. So allowing me to load this through my hips and keep myself as upright as I can, I'm able to activate a little more quadricep, glute, actual focus on my leg work instead of a little more of my posterior chain taking over and helping me with it.
There are 3 key factors that are holding your strength back, and in my opinion, the third is the most important. We have covered all these factors on the Table Talk podcast. The guests that I bring out, we're not looking for science-based, and we're not looking for bro science. What I'm looking for are the guests that can help you become stronger. When you look at each one of those camps, they all attribute the success to the people outside of their camps as being outliers. Well, in my opinion, over my 4 decades in the sport, I'm pretty well convinced we're all outliers because everything works for everybody for some period of time. When the focus is on one of these 3 things. First is the physical attribute. That's going to be the genetics, the biology, the recovery, the nutrition, the programming. This is generally where everybody wants to go first. Thus why you see such an overemphasis on program hopping, PEDs, nutrition, certain critical, minute gray areas of all these factors. That's why it's clickbaitable, because this is where everybody wants to go first, but I don't think it's the most important. The second, the mental attributes. This is the psychology that's associated with training, the mindset, the motivation, the focus, not just to the point of how you prepare yourself before a big lift, but how you're preparing your day, how you're preparing your life. Again, if you've been following the Table Talk podcast, you're going to see that these are all reoccurring topics that keep coming up and up. But the most important one is next. To me, the most important aspect is the technical aspect. The technical aspect is how you take all these attributes and you put them together, and it's also the technical aspects of how you perform each and every one of those lifts. The reason why I say this is the most important is because it's the last place anybody wants to look if their strength isn't progressing. For instance, how many times have you heard people ask, what exercise do I need to do to make my bench bigger? What exercise do I need to do to make my quads bigger? What kind of diet should I do to be able to bulk up or to get leaner? How often do you hear somebody say, what's the best way to put all these variables together? What's the best way to perform an exercise for the outcomes that I'm looking for? This is why we've set up the crew. With the crew, we have 3 tiers. The first tier is just if you want to help support the podcast. We appreciate the support. If it wasn't for your support, we wouldn't have a Table Talk podcast. So tier 1 will give you badges, which I guess are like a popular thing. I don't know, but we appreciate the support and we could use the support. The second tier gives you ad-free podcast, an extra AMA podcast, plus all the fun badges. The third tier is our full Discord crew membership. This is where you'll have access to the community of like-minded individuals that are focusing on pushing their strength to the next level. You'll also have access to webinars, extra content, AMAs, ebooks, programs. There's so much in there, it's hard for me to list everything. And if I did, this video would go too long. Whether you want to just support the podcast or have extra content or have a deeper connection and take your training to the next level, we have a tier for you. Click the join button. Summer's here and so is the heat. I've spent most of my life training in unconditioned gyms, and I know most of you that are training in garage gyms, private gyms, black iron gyms, know what I'm talking about when I say the heat sucks. It kills your motivation to go to the gym, it kills your performance, but it doesn't have to if you keep your electrolytes up. That's why today's episode is sponsored by Element. Element is a tasty electrolyte drink with everything you need and nothing you don't. This means lots of salt with none of the junk. No sugar, no colors, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, no BS. It contains an electrolyte ratio of 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. Element can help prevent and eliminate headaches, muscle cramps, fatigue, brain fog, sleeplessness, and other common symptoms associated with electrolyte deficiency. Right now, Element is offering a free sample pack with any drink mix purchase. Get yours at drinkelement.com. This deal is only available through the Table Talk link.
You know, you laugh, dude. It's so like, hey, like I'll show him my bench. I'm like, okay, well, it's 530 double. Let's see, I swing out and it takes me 8 seconds to have the bar racked again. From unrack, hit the double unrack. I watched you do a set of 8. It took 1 minute and 45 seconds with your setup, your unrack, you're holding the bar like 10 seconds between each rep. What are you doing? Like, just get it done. Like, you're trying to, like, your friend in here the other day that's trying to get comfortable on bench. He's like, I'm cramping. I was like, just let it fucking cramp. Like, why are you trying to be comfortable? You're just go be comfortable when you get home. Turn some Netflix on. Kick your fucking feet up. Look, we're here to bench press, dude. Like, it's not fucking. It's not a competition, you know.
No, I like what you said there. It's all to get them to stop doing a lot of the different things.
Stop being an idiot.
Yeah, because everybody's looking for the magical cue.
It's like, really, there's just 50 other steps here that are completely unnecessary. It's actually just pick it up and push.
Yeah.
Like, put it on your back and push really, really, really hard. Like how I said, the only cue I have for is bench. It kind of took me a long time to get for benches to push. It took me a long time to get there, but now my technique's so good that I don't have to think about it. If you're over tucked and your positioning is terrible, like, cues are useful other than just push. Obviously, you want to make those adjustments. When you get to the point where you don't really have to think and trying and just try harder is really the only cue you need. A lot of people, they get upset with me because they'll hire me and they'll send me shit. And I'm like, you just need to try harder. And they're like, what? No, actually, there's an article you have, the CAT article on Elite FTS. You know what I'm talking about? Where it's like numerous paragraphs basically explaining like you should make the reps explosive and blah blah. I like sending that to people because like most people are like, what do you mean try harder? What do you mean try? Like I'm like, dude, you're benching 135 for like 6 as a grown man right here. Like I'm benching 500 for reps, and I think I can try harder. Do you really believe you're giving this everything your soul has? You're gonna look me in the face and you're gonna tell me that. Like I see how you approach this. That is nowhere close to true. You know.
What about their setup on the bench press?
Just it's the same thing. Just taking too much time. There's not an aggression. It's not nap time.
Yeah,
it's not nap time. Get in, get out. Like don't lay around on it. Have some aggression to it. Like treat it like you care very deeply. You know, like it's just, I don't know how, it's hard to make someone care.
Yeah.
It really is. Like,
well, they're there, right? Which is the confusing part about the whole thing.
That's the most confusing part. Cause like, I remember I was talking to one kid one day and he was like, he was going off his coach's program. He's the guy who programmed me for my first meet. So I have a lot of respect and loyalty to him, obviously. And this kid's going off his program in front of him, which I find to be very disrespectful. I'm sure he found to be very disrespectful. And he's too kind. He's not going to like, battering the kid. Me, I will batter the kid. So I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you're not going to make any progress doing it. You've been coming here doing the same shit for months. You haven't made any progress. He's like, it's a hobby. It's a hobby for me. I'm like, do you want to suck at your hobbies? I don't understand. I don't get it. When I go bowling, like I'm not even a professional bowler. I don't care about bowling at all. I don't roll a strike. I'm fucking mad. I don't like sucking at shit, dude. I don't want to go out in public and just suck at something, especially for months at a time. And then someone's like, why are you like so bad at this? Like, it's a hobby. How you do anything is how you do everything, bro. Why do you want to do shit and just suck at it? You know, like it's one thing to, if you like going bowling, it's kind of like, this is my whole life revolves around competing and rankings and shit. Like it's nice because it's like I actually don't, if I place last in bowling, it's not gonna affect me like if I bomb out of me. Like I don't care that much. Yeah, you know what I mean? But I'm not going bowling 4 times a week for 2 hours. If I was doing that, dude, I want to be that guy that's like, you ever see that video? It's like, love me or hate me, all you could do is watch me. Yeah, I'm gonna be a sweaty fucking bowler, dude. I'm gonna be sweating fucking profusely. Like
then the deadlift, because that, you know, they're going to need some degree of patience, because if they just go down and grab it and pull it, it could end up being this stiff leg deadlift looking thing.
Yeah, lose your positioning.
Yeah.
The thing about deadlift, patience is one thing with people. It depends on what you mean when you say patience. So a lot of people, they talk about the sumo deadlift or deadlift in general. It's like, you want to have patience at the start. And I get what they're saying. Like, you want to get in position before you push, you know, make sure everything's where it needs to be before you try to like apply the pressure. Because if you do, the legs will do their job if you're where you need. I understand what they're saying, but I feel like a lot of people, they hear the term patience and they like slowly pull. They like, they want to feel a deadlift. Like, bro, walk up to a brick wall and try to feel the brick wall before you run into it. It's not going to work. It's not. You got to get full fucking speed and just truck it, and you're going to feel it tomorrow, and you just got to be willing to eat it. You know, so like Ed Cohn said that in the Super Train videos, like, you will never feel a heavy deadlift like off the floor and make it. Like, you have to commit. You have to like commit right off the floor. So I like to tell people to commit more than to have patience, because I feel like the patience is like, where it means is like, if it sticks to me, patience, if it sticks to the ground really long and it feels very slow, basically just keep going. Don't stop. Keep trying as hard as you can the entire time. That, to me, that's what patience means. It's not, oh, well, just if it comes off the ground, like, cool, then keep trying. No, it's not like it. No, dude, you're ripping it. You are ripping. Do you want to get in position? Do you want to take your time and make sure everything is where it needs to be 100%? But it's not like it's not passive at all. It's not like there's a lack of aggression because patience is present. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where people fuck up in the deadlift, I think the tightening the upper body thing, that is like one of the biggest things. Head position, people always having their head really down, and there's like way more back dominant, and they're not as much in their legs. That, and people like to squat their deadlifts or try to. Because, I'm going to get my legs involved. So they shoot their hips super low, and then they just shoot up to start. Like, just start with your hips high. Start with your hips high. Your hips do not move vertically in a deadlift. They move horizontal. is you apply them forward.
Yeah.
So kind of teaching someone like proper hip position, but even then, like I might give them a talking to and explain it a little bit. But the best way I found to teach someone that is just to have them like do like a controlled negative, not touch and go, but like control it down, let it die on the ground, keep your position, pull again, like the egg cone deadlift, because it puts you, if the bar will lower you perfectly into your start position.
Yeah.
You know, so doing that like lighter loads, if I do train reps for the deadlift, which is very seldom. I noticed that when I got under Josh, like 3x3 is probably the highest reps he'll ever do. A lot of times he'll write that. I'll do like 9 singles instead with like 30 seconds rest. That way it's like 9 reps in like 3 minutes or whatever anyway. Because it's like the deadlift, unlike the squat and the bench, like there's no, if you use straps on a deadlift and you get that stretch reflex, it's very easy to just keep going. You can take advantage of the negative portion and how it kind of, second rep's always going to be faster. Where if you do those cluster singles, you never get that. You never get it. It's always from a dead stop, and that's how you have to pull in a meet. So it's more specific. So that's why I like to train the deadlift in like singles only. And a lot of people think that means, oh, so all you do is heavy sing. Dude, I will go. My best pull is 8, 10 in a meet. I will go pull like 475 to like 5 singles. And that's my deadlift workout. But I did SSB first. I'm going to do leg extension, back extension, straight leg sit-ups. And those are going to be the things that drive me forward. The reason, it's not that deadlifting light is going to be the thing that makes you strong, but deadlifting heavy all the time, I feel like you only get so far so fast, especially if you're trying to build your total and not just the deadlift, you know? So like just deadlifting light kind of enables me the next week so I can punch. They say like it takes like 7 to 10 days to recover from a heavy deadlift, and everyone's a little different depending on what you're used to, how often you've handled them. But I've noticed the less often I deadlift heavy, usually the better my deadlift gets.
Yeah.
You know, and like I took 2, I was going to do surge, which would have been the 28th last week before I tore my adductor. And I took 2 sumo deadlifts and probably 2 heavy sumo deadlifts in months. Like before that, it was like SSB and trap bar for like 4 months straight. And I went back and I pulled the AO4 I pulled was the best deadlift I've ever pulled. And technically efficient, probably not the most technically efficient I've done. But in terms of strength, you know, like I would have liked to practice this skill a little more, but I feel like a lot of people, like I'm sure you saw people like commenting when I was doing nothing but SSB, and they're like, how do you know you're getting stronger if you're not doing a straight bar? I'm like, dude, I put 100 pounds on my SSB.
Yeah.
I put 100 pounds on this back.
Well, you use a technique with that too, which is more rounded back, right? Which is going to simulate that more closely.
Yes. It's very specific.
Yeah.
My low bar squat is how I feel, you know, because it's so back dominant. And I noticed when I went straight back from the SSB to the straight bar, even my first session back without even like being comfortable yet with low bar, that's when I hit my, I think it was a 705 double. That was the first time I hit a 705 double without even training my low bar. And everyone was like, oh, that's how I knew I got stronger. I put 100 pounds on my back squat. I didn't have to go to a straight bar to figure that out.
Yeah.
And now my arms, I think my bench progressed a lot more this off season for that reason, because my elbows and my shoulders weren't so like torn up because I have such a low bar position for low bar. And even in prep for surge, what I like about Josh is like a lot of people is like, okay, well now we're in prep, we're just going to go straight back to the straight bar. I'll do straight bar, low bar 1 week, and the next week is SSB again. Then low bar, then SSB, is like alternating them. So that way my arms just stood fresh. And I could just bench heavy at high intensities all the time, and my elbows, you know, weren't fucking trash. So I could handle it and keep progressing, you know?
What are you training for now?
I'm debating on doing the American Pro or Jordan Wong's meet platform, King of the Platform, in December. It depends on where my adductor is and how healed I am. Tomorrow, I'm going to squat somewhere between 562 to like 600 for some tempo reps, and that'll kind of give me an idea. But I don't really know my plan outside of taking it 1 week at a time and making sure I'm in one piece, because if I'm not 100% for the pro and I don't feel like I'm going to go hit a total PR, I don't really care to pay, go do all that training.
Yeah. How many weeks do you need to be healthy? Because I call that kind of getting back to the starting gate. You know, so how many weeks do you need to be as fresh as you can be to actually get to a meet?
It's hard to say because I've never torn my adductor and I've never had bruising run down my leg. So it's not an injury I've dealt with before. Like the hamstring didn't bruise up as bad. And when I've strained pecs in the past, it's like a 1 or a 2 week thing. So it's kind of, it's still like a 1 day at a time thing. Like some old guy at the gym asked me like, how long is it going to take you? And I'm like, dude,
You don't know.
I'm on week 2.
Yeah.
I didn't go to a doctor and get a guideline of here's when you should be able to do. I don't think they know how to work up to an 800-pound squat.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I just kind of come in. I just like Josh will give me like suggestions of like based off of like what I did the previous week, but really it's a suggestion.
Yeah.
Like it's 3x3 on squat. Go in there and see what your body will allow you to do, and it's more so based off of that. Like I'm not trying to like rush the healing process. I don't want to like if I'm not 100% sure that I could like my body's going to stay together for the attempt. Like I don't even want to take it because it's not worth the setback of a year.
Oh yeah.
If it was something to the point where I competed 4 weeks later instead. You know, especially at this point in my career. When I was younger, I used to just compete injured. I didn't give a shit. So whatever. This meet's such a big deal. This one coming up. It's like now I care more about myself and an individual and the longevity of my career than any individual. So whichever one kind of like falls according to my schedule, you know, whatever like meet. And it's also tricky now that USPA exploded because there's not many like meets near me. So it's like you really kind of have to go to a big one, especially if you want like spotters that can catch a heavy squat.
Hey,
you know, at the last local meet I did, I had like 2 female side spotters, and I'm very grateful for the help and them stepping in, but I didn't. After my second squat, it was a little shaky, and I was like trying to figure out if I was going to go up. And they're like, "You got a little lightheaded?" I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Please don't do it. Please don't do it." And I was like, "All right, I'll waive it." And, you know, in my head, like I just move it to bench and deadlift. That's why I only squat like 700 pounds that meet because I didn't want to push it too much with the circumstances. But I want to. The king of the platform, I'm sure the spotters would be great. American Pro would be great with, you know, great environment as well. I'm sure both of them would have a great environment. So whichever one of those is going to align better with what I'm doing, you know.
Yeah. Were there any topics you wanted to go over I didn't bring up?
I didn't have any topics in mind. I didn't. I showed up, dude, and I'm here, and I figured we just shoot the shit.
Shoot the shit.
Yeah. I feel like we got to cover a lot. I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
Any final thoughts?
Thank you for having me. Shout out to my mom and dad for being my sponsors and let me live in their beach house. And for my mom to give me rides to the gym for years on end. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me, bro.
All right. Well, thank you for coming out. And with that being said, we're done.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching the video to the end. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and click here, or here for more videos.